Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing the technique sword and hammer, its execution, and some of the physical problems that can arise during its execution. We're not going to be discussing how this technique fits into the system or any relations thereof. So let's start out with the ideal phase to this technique. The ideal phase is an offset rear right shoulder grab with the opponent's left hand. Notice what I'm doing with my left hand here. That's the first thing that we need to worry about, because if I begin to move here, I still have to worry about a potential strike coming from my opponent. So that's what this left hand is for. It can do one of two things. It could either be raised up and cover the hand, which would prevent the hit coming towards me, but it wouldn't prevent him from pulling away from me if he needed to. Or I could do the alternative to that, which would be a check, or in this case, a pinning check. That prevents any motion of the opponent's hand. Either one is perfectly fine. I'm going to choose to do the check for the demonstrations inside this video. So as I check his hand, the next thing I need to worry about is what's going to happen with this foot. I'm going to step towards this opponent. If you notice what I just did, I stepped fairly deep on this opponent. That can cause a problem. That problem is what's called straddling the paddle, and there's two potential ways of doing this. One is the way I just showed you, which is on the inside. The second one is on the outside. Either one of these could cause a potential problem. The way to solve that is to step almost on the line of attack so that you don't give the opponent any line of entry for his kick. So, get our check in place, we get our step. Now, the next thing that's going to occur is this right hand. It's going to be the strike that is actually executed on this opponent. There are a couple methodologies that can happen here and some problems that can go wrong with those methodologies. One which would be is if I step, I let my hand hang here, which would cause a cocking of the hand, or I could cock the hand, get ready to hit him. Either one of these two has a problem, and he basically showed you what it is. I'm telegraphing my move, and he can potentially stop me from hitting him. That's a bad thing. So how do we solve that problem? The way we solve that problem is to come from point of origin. So as I begin to step, it comes up, tracks up his body through a contouring method of execution, and then thrusts up and sends him back. This is coming from point of origin, and it's what's called a zone of obscurity. The reason why it's called a zone of obscurity is because he can see this line. This line is potentially outside of his line of vision, and he can't see it coming towards him. So, the final thing to worry about with this initial salvo is the timing. I could pin, step, chop. I could step, chop, pin, or I could do all three together, or a variety of different things. So what we want to do is try and get them all timed as precisely as we can in conjunction all at the same time. So what we would do is we begin to get this left hand moving first, because that's the one we have to worry about, and then set and hit all in one motion. Okay, so one more time. We go back, hit. So notice what happens with this opponent. He should be going backwards at a 45-degree angle, and this is checking his height zone, width zone, and depth zone. At this point, there's a couple things that can occur. If we stick with the ideal phase says to bounce off and hit him in with a hammer fist into the groin. That's a good alternative, but there's a problem that could potentially arise with that if you analyze it. If you look at where I am here on his throat, and I begin to come all the way around and look at this as a clock. Imagine a clock sitting here. We're starting at 12 o'clock and we don't make contact until 6 o'clock. That's 30 minutes around the clock without making any contact. If I have him in a good position, that isn't a problem. Come and get the hit, not a problem at all. If I don't bend him over and I bounce off, I still have a potential problem of him seeing this hand not being in his obscure zone again and potentially blocking it again. So one way to solve that problem is to take a shorter line of travel, and that would be to turn your hand over and spike straight down. If you notice what that does is it shortens up the path of travel quite a bit, so you have to be more precise in your hits and more accurate in your body English as you deliver this strike. What does that mean? That means as I drop, I'm going to spike down and use my body to help drop this strike in. With that, there could be another problem. If I hit this strike here, watch what happens to this elbow. If I begin to strike down and my elbow does not anchor, it doesn't stay in line with my body. I need alignment in order to have backup mass, and in this case, it's backup mass in the vertical position. So as I begin to drop, I want to hit down, making sure my arm is in line with the drop of my body. The last thing is the rotation of this hand. I always want to make sure I have an angle of incidence. In this case, it would be 90 degrees to his body. I wouldn't want to hit So my hand is perpendicular to the floor because it would be causing an angle of deflection. I want to make sure I have an angle of incidence to spike them to the floor, which would be, in this case, almost at a 45-degree angle. So let's watch that one more time, and we're going to do it somewhat at full speed, and you can see the effect of what happens. So you hit back, spike them to the floor. So that is the effect of what you'll get by taking him to the floor. He'll go down to the ground, and at that point, you can cross out if you wish. So let's do this one more time real slow, giving you both options. Making sure you either cover or check. In this case, I will cover. Step back, make sure we don't straddle the paddle. Make sure we do a zone of obscurity. In this case, we can bounce back, hit the groin, cross out. The alternative to that is I'll do the check this time, step back, hit, spike to the floor, and then out. Up. Hope this video helps you. Thank you very much.